Tonight, we drift into a world where sleep was never simple. It was mysterious, it was dangerous, and sometimes it was downright ridiculous. For centuries, people filled the night with explanations. If you couldn't move when you woke up, it wasn't stress, it was a demon on your chest. If you dreamed about cows, it wasn't because you lived on a farm. It was because the universe had a message for you. Every yawn, every snore, every dream was given meaning, and most of those meanings were completely wrong. So settle in. Let the strangeness of the past carry you toward your own dreams. As we explore 50 of the oddest, funniest, and most haunting things people once believed about sleep. Before we begin, if you truly enjoy these stories, hitting like or subscribe helps me keep making them, and hopefully helps you keep drifting off. Let me know where you're listening from tonight. I'm always amazed by the places people tune in. Now, get comfortable, take a slow breath in, and let it out. Because once this story begins, chances are you'll be asleep before it ends. Belief 1. Souls leaving the body during sleep. Long before alarm clocks and sleep apps, people thought your soul was the one doing the traveling. Every night, when your head hit the pillow, they believed the soul slipped free of your body. Like a ghostly tourist, it wandered off while you snored. Dreams were the postcards it brought back. If you dreamed of soaring above mountains, that meant your soul had actually flown there. If you dreamed of chatting with your grandmother, it was because your soul had paid her a midnight visit in the afterlife. There was, of course, a terrifying catch. What if the soul got lost? What if it wandered too far and couldn't find its way back? Sudden death in sleep was explained this way. The body woke up empty. The soul had gone sightseeing and never returned. To prevent this, families were cautious with sleepers. You didn't shake someone awake too roughly. You didn't shout their name. Because the soul might be halfway across the river Styx and lose its grip on the return ticket. It gave bedtime an extra layer of drama. Closing your eyes wasn't just rest. It was an act of faith that your wandering soul would come back in the morning. And when a loved one finally stirred at dawn, everyone exhaled in relief. The soul had made the journey safely home, at least until the next night's adventure. 2. Nightmares caused by demons on the chest. The word nightmare wasn't always about a bad dream. It once meant a night demon, an invisible intruder who treated your chest like a chair. If you woke up unable to move, gasping for air, people said it was the mare, not a horse, though honestly, a horse sitting on your chest would explain it too. This was a spirit, a shadowy figure with the worst manners imaginable. It would pin you down, pressing the breath from your lungs. Your arms wouldn't move, your legs refused to obey, and you could only stare at the corner of the room, sure something was lurking there. Today, we call this sleep paralysis. Back then, it was simply proof that you needed stronger charms and maybe fewer late-night snacks. To ward off the demon, people armed themselves. Some slept with knives under the pillow. Others burned incense to fumigate their bedrooms. One superstition even advised sleeping with a pile of beans by the bed, because apparently demons couldn't resist counting them. Illustrations from the time often show goblins crouched on sleepers, like smug little gargoyles. Sometimes they look terrifying. Other times, they look like cats who just refuse to move no matter how many times you push them off. But the fear was real. Night after night, people dreaded closing their eyes, worried that the mare would ride them until dawn. And while science eventually gave the experience a name, it never erased the chill. Even today, when sleep paralysis strikes, it's hard not to feel like someone else is in the room. From demons pressing down on the chest, we move to demons of another sort. Those hiding in mirrors and waiting for the soul to wander too close. 3. Mirrors. Near the bed could trap the soul. In many old traditions, mirrors were never just glass, they were portals, and you did not want one pointed at your bed. People believed that while you slept, your soul might wander, and if a mirror stood nearby, it could snatch the soul inside like a cosmic mousetrap. This made bedrooms a delicate business. Imagine rearranging furniture, not because it looked better, but because you didn't want your spirit stuck in the dresser overnight. The fear was simple. A mirror didn't just reflect your face, it could reflect your essence. And if the soul got tangled in the reflection, morning might never come. Some even covered mirrors before bed, not for privacy, but for protection, like throwing a blanket over a haunted window. Folklore said this was especially dangerous after death. If a corpse lay in a room with uncovered mirrors, the soul might linger and become trapped, which is why in many cultures, mirrors were draped with cloth after someone passed away. Others took it less seriously. One 17th century writer joked that if souls did get stuck in mirrors, most people would at least be polite enough to leave them a comb. Still, for those who believed, mirrors were risky roommates, best kept covered, turned away, or banned from bedrooms entirely. And so, with mirrors safely covered, people turned to another line of defense. Strange little rituals and objects left under the pillow to keep nightmares away. 4. Garlic under the pillow to ward off nightmares. Garlic has been many things in history. A cooking ingredient, a vampire repellent, and, oddly enough, a bedtime security system. People once believed that placing a clove of garlic under your pillow could chase away nightmares. Forget dream catchers. This was the original odor-based protection plan. The logic was simple. Garlic was strong. It fought illness, frightened spirits, and apparently cleared out anything spooky that might crawl into your dreams. Of course, it also cleared out anyone else in the bed. One whiff of that pillow, and you'd be dreaming alone. In some households, children were tucked in with a garlic clove nearby. Parents reassured them that no demon would bother coming near, and the kids probably believed it because they were too busy crying about the smell to think about monsters. Garlic was even used in wedding rituals. Couples kept it by the bed on their first night together. Not exactly the most romantic choice, but apparently considered safer than satin sheets. The funny part is that garlic really does have antibacterial properties. So while people thought it was fending off ghouls, it might actually have been protecting against colds. Unintentionally, they were half right. Still, garlic's nighttime duty faded over time. Today, it's back to its usual place in kitchens instead of under pillows. Though honestly, if you had a bad enough nightmare streak, you might consider trying it. Worst case, you just wake up craving pasta. From cloves under pillows, we move to sharp steel under mattresses. Another curious attempt to keep night terrors away. 5. Sleeping with knives under the bed for protection. In many households of the past, bedtime meant more than blankets and pillows. It meant weapons. People believed that placing knives under the bed, or sometimes even under the pillow, could guard a sleeper from spirits, witches, and anything else that prowled the night. It wasn't about stabbing intruders. It was about scaring away things you couldn't even see. The idea was simple. Evil spirits didn't like sharp edges. A knife was thought to slice through bad dreams, demons, or curses before they could reach the sleeper. Some parents even slipped little daggers beneath their children's mattresses. Nothing says sweet dreams like tucking your kid in over a concealed weapon. Of course, this came with risks. One wrong roll in the night and the fight against demons became a fight against your own bedsheets. Folklore claimed witches in particular feared iron blades. So in villages where superstition ruled, blacksmiths became unlikely heroes of bedtime security. They weren't just making tools and horseshoes, they were manufacturing anti-nightmare systems. Some stories even suggest people whispered charms over the blade before slipping it beneath the bed. As if a regular knife wasn't enough, it had to be a knife with paperwork. Today, of course, the practice has vanished. Knives have gone back to kitchens where they belong. And if you tell someone you keep cutlery under your bed, they'll assume you just snack at night. But back then, it was serious protection. A silent bodyguard beneath the mattress, warding off unseen dangers until morning light. From knives under the bed, we moved to charms tied to the body. Strips of red thread meant to block nightmares before they began. 6. Red thread around the wrist to block nightmare. Long before sleep bracelets promised better rest, people had their own version. A simple piece of red thread tied around the wrist. It wasn't a fashion statement, it was a shield. The color red was thought to confuse or repel evil forces. So if nightmares came looking for you, the thread worked like a glowing "do not disturb" sign. Parents often tied the thread around the wrists of children. Better a silly string on the arm than a demon in the dream. In some cultures, the red string wasn't just for sleep. It guarded against the evil eye. jealous glances that could curse the innocent. So at night, the string served double duty: nightmare repellent and envy protection in one convenient accessory. Imagine drifting off, one hand dangling off the bed, the little string waving like a flag. Nightmares sneak in, take one look, and decide to bother someone less prepared. Of course, skeptics had questions. What if the knot came loose at midnight? Did the nightmares get a free pass? Or worse, did you wake up cursed because you rolled over too many times? Still, many swore by it. For centuries, a bit of thread was as trusted as any prayer. It was cheap, portable, and didn't smell like garlic. Today, you can still find red thread bracelets sold for protection, though most wearers say it's for tradition or luck. Few realize they're also carrying an ancient anti-nightmare device. From red thread on the wrist, we move to smoke in the air. Rituals where incense was burned to clear the path for safe and peaceful sleep. 7. Burning incense to cleanse the bedroom before sleep. Before scented candles filled store shelves, people had incense, and it wasn't just about making the room smell nice. It was protection. The smoke from burning herbs or resin was thought to chase away evil spirits. A few curls of fragrant mist, and suddenly the room was off limits to demons. In temples, incense carried prayers to the heavens. In bedrooms, it carried nightmares out the window. At least, that's what people hoped. Different herbs had different reputations. Frankincense was considered holy. Sage was thought to banish darkness, and if all else failed, someone probably tried burning whatever they had lying around. Imagine drifting off with a stick of incense smoldering nearby. The air thick, the room hazy, your eyes watering, and you telling yourself, "This is fine, the spirits are definitely gone." Of course, there were drawbacks. Fire hazards for one. Plenty of old houses likely smelled less like demons and more like smoke damage. Still, the ritual had comfort. Lighting incense made the act of going to bed feel sacred, like preparing the stage for safe passage into dreams. And even today, incense remains popular for sleep. Not so much because people fear goblins, mostly because lavender just smells nicer than a damp mattress. From smoky rooms, the next superstition points to the sky itself, where even the direction you faced in bed was said to decide your fate. Fate, sleeping facing east for good fortune. Long before sleep, apps told you the best position. Ancient wisdom had its own compass. People believed that sleeping with your head pointed east brought good fortune. East meant sunrise. It meant beginnings, warmth, and renewal. So aligning your body with the rising sun was like plugging yourself into the universe's charger. Some cultures swore it gave you longer life. Others claimed it sharpened your mind. And of course, a few insisted it guaranteed sweeter dreams. Sleeping west, on the other hand, was frowned upon. That direction belonged to sunsets, endings, and sometimes even death. Not exactly the kind of mood you wanted before bed. Imagine the hassle. You move to a new house, and suddenly, the entire bedroom layout has to change. Not for style, just to make sure you aren't accidentally snoozing toward doom. Feng Shui traditions carried similar ideas. Energy was thought to flow with the compass, so the wrong direction could mean restlessness or bad luck. Even your pillow placement was a cosmic decision. Of course, skeptics might argue that people facing east just woke up earlier because the sunlight blasted them in the face. A practical explanation hiding behind a mystical one. But for centuries, people swore by it. Sleep east, live longer, dream brighter. Sleep west, and, well, don't. From the pull of the sunrise, we drift to a much stranger superstition, when the timing of sleep itself was said to invite witches to creep through the twilight. 9. Avoiding sleep at twilight, the witching hour. In many old traditions, twilight was not a cozy time for a nap. It was a danger zone. People believed that drifting off to sleep at dusk made you a target. That in-between light, where day wasn't gone and night hadn't fully arrived, was said to belong to witches. If you fell asleep then, witches could slip into your dreams, or worse, steal a piece of your soul while it wandered. Some households warned children never to nap at twilight. Better to stay cranky than wake up cursed. The superstition spread across Europe and beyond. Even the phrase witching hour comes from this fear of half-light. That odd, eerie stillness when shadows stretch long and every creak of wood sounds like a visitor. Imagine a farmer coming home from the fields, exhausted, tempted to nap in the doorway. But instead of rest, he forces himself awake, mumbling, "Not now, the witches are watching." Of course, there might have been practical roots. Twilight naps meant missing chores, or waking in the dark and stumbling around without candles. The supernatural warning may have been just an exaggerated bedtime rule. Still, the fear stuck. Twilight was painted as a liminal space, a time when the world itself was unsettled, and falling asleep in such a moment was like leaving your door unlocked. From warnings about twilight, we moved to something even saltier, literally. The belief that sprinkling salt near your bed could trap spirits before they reached your dream. 10. Sprinkling salt by the bed to trap spirits. Salt has always been more than seasoning. For centuries, it was seen as sacred, and when it came to bedtime, people used it like an invisible fence. The belief was that evil spirits couldn't cross a line of salt, so before sleep, some sprinkled it around the bed, a crunchy barrier between the living and the lurking. It wasn't just spirits either. Witches, demons, and even the devil himself were supposedly stumped by salt. Apparently, nothing ruins dark magic like a good mineral. The reasoning varied. Some said salt was pure because it preserved food. Others believed it symbolized life itself, tiny crystals of order in a chaotic world. Families sometimes left little bowls of it near sleeping children. The idea was that spirits would be too distracted counting the grains to bother with nightmares, an early version of busy work for ghosts. Imagine explaining to your spouse why there was salt sprinkled all over the bedroom floor. Don't worry, honey, it's not a mess. It's a spirit trap. Of course, there were downsides. Salt wasn't exactly easy to sweep up from straw floors, and it probably confused a few mice who thought they'd stumbled into a very strange buffet. Still, for many centuries, salt was the cheapest and most trusted bedroom guardian. A pinch here, a handful there, and suddenly you had a spirit-proof sleep zone. From salt on the floor, we moved to potions in a cup. Strange bedtime drinks meant to summon dreams, visions, and sometimes a whole lot of regret by morning. 11. Drinking dream potions before bed. Bedtime once came with more than blankets and prayers. For some, it came with a cup of mysterious liquid. These were dream potions, homemade brews designed to guide the night. Some promised restful sleep, others claimed to unlock visions of the future, and a few simply knocked you out so hard you didn't wake until Thursday. The recipes were as strange as they were varied. Honey and warm milk might appear in one, poppy seeds and crushed herbs in another. And if you asked an ambitious alchemist, you might end up drinking gold flakes. Because why not mix luxury with indigestion? One medieval physician swore by a recipe involving wine, mint, and just enough opium to make your dreams especially vivid, which is one way of describing a 3-day nap. Parents gave mild versions to children. Drink this, they'd say, and you'll sleep soundly with happy dreams. The poor kids didn't argue. After all, who's going to complain about medicine when you're already halfway asleep? Of course, not every potion worked as intended. Some dreamers reported visions of angels. Others woke, convinced they'd spent the night wrestling goats. Results may have varied, but the belief stayed strong. Alchemists treated dreams like messages from the beyond. They believed their brews could control which doors the soul stepped through. A sip here, and maybe you'd speak with ancestors. A gulp there, and maybe you'd end up seeing tomorrow's weather. Today, people still use teas and tonics for sleep. Chamomile has replaced crushed poppy, but the idea lingers that what you drink before bed can shape where your mind wanders in the dark. From strange brews, we drift to strange timing. Because the next superstition warned against eating too much before sleep, or else nightmares would surely follow. 12. Sleeping after eating causes nightmares. Today, people joke about cheese giving them wild dreams, but in the past, almost any meal could be blamed. The belief was simple. Fall asleep right after eating, and you'd invite nightmares. not because of digestion, but because your meal was thought to weigh on the soul. Some claimed demons hid in heavy foods, bread too rich, meat too fatty, ale too strong. All of it gave the devil a foothold. Others said the stomach's burden trapped the soul, that while your spirit tried to wander free, it was chained down by your supper. Parents warned their children sternly. Stay awake a while after dinner, they'd say, or your dreams will be dark. Of course, most kids ignored them and passed out anyway. Imagine a farmer coming home after a long day, collapsing in the hay after a heavy stew. He wakes at midnight, sweating, muttering about demons chasing him through fields of cabbage. Doctors of the time agreed, though for different reasons. They spoke of humors being unbalanced, vapors rising to the brain, and food clogging the channels of thought. The science was nonsense, but the warnings were memorable. In reality, there may have been a grain of truth. Sleeping on a full stomach can cause restlessness, and indigestion does make for uneasy dreams. But for centuries, the explanation was supernatural, not heartburn, but haunting. From heavy meals we turn to heavy dampness, the old belief that going to bed with wet hair could invite death itself. 13. Sleeping with wet hair could kill you. Few warnings were repeated more often than this one. Never, under any circumstance, go to bed with wet hair. Some swore it caused raging fevers. Others said it would stop your breath entirely by morning. The idea was that dampness left the body vulnerable. Moisture invited evil forces into the head. And once they settled there, illness or death would follow. Mothers repeated the rule like gospel. If a child coughed in the morning, it was blamed on the damp strands of last night. Some even believed spirits clung to the droplets themselves, that every bead of water was a tiny door for misfortune to slip through. Imagine a weary traveler washing before bed at an inn. The innkeeper shakes her head, muttering, "Dry it well, or you won't see daylight." Of course, many ignored the warnings and lived, but that never killed the superstition. One survivor was simply called lucky. Interestingly, modern medicine offers a sliver of explanation. Cold, damp hair can lower body temperature, making you more susceptible to chills. It won't kill you, but it can make life miserable. So the old belief wasn't entirely nonsense, it was just greatly exaggerated. From damp hair, we turn to noisy sleep, because for many years, people thought snoring wasn't just annoying, it was deadly. 14. Snoring shortens your life. Snoring today is mostly treated with jokes, earplugs, or the occasional elbow in the ribs, but in the past, it was taken much more seriously. Some believed that every snore was a piece of your life slipping away. Each rattling breath shaved off a little more time. Others claimed snoring made the soul too loud, that spirits could hear it, track it, and interfere with the sleeper. There were even warnings that snoring signaled a body already failing, that the sound itself was a funeral drum, announcing the slow march toward death. Families worried if a loved one snored heavily. "Listen," they'd whisper, "he's losing years with every breath." Of course, some of this was likely rooted in observation. Loud snoring often comes with health issues, but wrapped in superstition, it became a death sentence in itself. Folk remedies abounded: sleeping upright, stuffing herbs in pillows, even tying the sleeper's jaw shut with cloth. Imagine waking up, groggy, only to find your family has strapped your mouth closed with twine for your own good. Peaceful dreams indeed. Today, science links snoring to real conditions like sleep apnea. So once again, the old fears weren't entirely wrong. They were just explained in the language of spirits instead of medicine. From noisy sleepers, we turn to shadowy visitors. The ancient fear of succubi and incubi, night demons said to slip beneath the covers. 15. Succubi and incubi attack sleeping people. Few superstitions were more terrifying than this: the belief that demons visited sleepers in the dark. Succubi, the female spirits, were said to prey on men. Incubi, the male ones, preyed on women, and neither were known for good manners. The stories were chilling. A sleeper would wake paralyzed. They'd feel a presence pressing down, whispering in their ear, draining their strength. Nightmares and exhaustion were blamed on these creatures. A restless night meant a demon had paid a visit. Some claimed succubi could even steal life through their encounters. Others said incubi caused strange pregnancies, an explanation used whenever no one wanted to face the truth. The church took these tales seriously. Priests warned of lustful spirits and offered prayers to drive them away. Confessions of being attacked filled old manuscripts, but not everyone was convinced. A few writers mocked the idea, joking that blaming demons was just a convenient excuse for awkward situations. Still, the fear spread, so much so that charms, holy water, and blessed objects became common fixtures at the bedside. People wanted every defense possible. Even today, some who experience sleep paralysis swear they sense a figure in the room, a shadow, a weight, a presence too strong to be coincidence. From demons lurking at the bedside, we move to more mischievous spirits. Fairies who, it was said, could slip into children's cradles while they slept. 16. Fairies could steal sleeping children. In many parts of Europe, parents feared not just illness or hunger, they feared fairies. The belief was that while children slept, fairies might sneak into the home and steal them. In their place, they would leave behind a changeling, a sickly, ill-tempered substitute. Mothers would study their babies in the morning, looking for signs. Was the child fussier than usual? Did their features look slightly different? Whispers spread quickly. The fairies have taken him. To protect against this, households used charms, iron tongs by the cradle, salt scattered near the bed, and sometimes a watchful cat curled close, though not always for magical reasons. The fear was serious enough that songs and lullabies warned children not to wander in dreams, not to answer voices calling from the forest. Imagine being a parent, staring nervously at the cradle every night, not worried about burglars, but about invisible fairies swapping babies like unwanted gifts. Today, historians believe changeling tales often explained real conditions. Developmental delays, illness, or disabilities misunderstood in earlier times. But wrapped in folklore, they became evidence of a nighttime theft. From fairies stealing children, we move to another superstition of moving homes. When even adults feared their sleep would be haunted unless proper rituals were followed. Sleeping in a new house without rituals invited spirits. Moving into a new home is stressful enough today, but in centuries past, it was downright terrifying. The belief was that a new house, especially one unblessed, attracted spirits, and if you dared to sleep there without rituals, you might not sleep peacefully at all. Families often carried out ceremonies before the first night. Bread or salt scattered at doorways, candles lit in each room, prayers whispered into corners where shadows gathered thickest. In some places, the first night's fire was considered sacred. Its smoke was thought to banish whatever lingered from the house's past. Neighbors sometimes came to help, not to carry furniture, but to chant or sing, chasing spirits away. Moving day felt less like unpacking boxes and more like hosting an exorcism party. Imagine arriving exhausted, ready for bed, but stopping to sprinkle flour along the floorboards, because otherwise the ghosts might come upstairs. Of course, not every ritual worked, but the peace of mind mattered. People believed the first night set the tone for every night after. From new homes and their restless shadows, we moved to restless windows, where even a cool breeze at night was once feared as an invitation for the dead to enter. Ghosts could enter through open windows. Fresh air is welcome today, but in the past, an open window at night was dangerous. People believed it allowed spirits to drift inside. The breeze might carry more than air, it might carry the dead. Bedrooms with open shutters were seen as vulnerable. A restless ghost, wandering the village, could slip through and hover by the bed. Families warned children never to sleep by a window unlatched. Close it, they'd say, or the dead will come sit with you. In some regions, it was even said that the souls of the newly dead traveled on the night wind, and leaving a window open was an invitation. Imagine trying to sleep on a hot summer night, sweating under blankets, while your grandmother insists the shutters stay closed. Better to swelter than to let in Uncle Henry's ghost. Of course, there was practicality hidden in the fear. Open windows let in animals, insects, and thieves. But dressed in folklore, the explanation was much spookier. From windows left ajar we moved to sounds that were deliberately made. Church bells rung at midnight to shield the sleeping from whatever might creep too close. 19. Bells rung at midnight protected sleepers. Church bells were more than a call to worship. They were bedtime armor. In many villages, bells tolled at midnight, not to mark the hour, but to frighten spirits. The sound was believed to ripple through the air like a shield. Ghosts scattered, demons retreated, and witches, if nearby, thought twice before continuing their work. The tradition was strong in medieval Europe. Priests declared that a bell's sound carried holiness, that no evil could withstand its vibrations. Villagers took comfort in hearing it, a reminder that while they slept, someone was guarding them with sound. Of course, not everyone appreciated it. Imagine trying to stay asleep when the bell tower erupted in the middle of the night. Protective or not, it made for cranky mornings. Still, the practice lingered. Even in times of plague, bells were rung to drive disease away, because sickness too was believed to be a spirit. From bells in the distance, we moved to charms at the bedside. Small woven circles said to catch bad dreams before they ever reach the sleeper. 20. Dream catchers and charms to filter dreams. Across cultures, people created objects to guard sleep. One of the most famous is the dream catcher, woven from string, beads, and feathers. It was said to filter dreams. Good dreams slid through the web. Bad ones got tangled and burned away by morning light. This idea wasn't unique. Other cultures hung amulets, shells, or small bags of herbs by the bed. Anything that might act as a net for nightmares. Children especially were given charms. Parents felt comfort knowing their little ones had protection dangling above. The symbolism was powerful. Dreams became like arrows or birds, things that could be intercepted. And by weaving or hanging objects, people believed they could take control. Of course, not every charm was beautiful. Some were crude lumps of wood tied with string, but even the ugliest was trusted more than bare air. Imagine rolling over in the night, staring at a dangling web above your head and thinking, yes, that should handle the demons just fine. Today, dream catchers are common decorations, but originally, they were tools of survival in a world where dreams felt just as dangerous as waking life. From webs catching dreams, we moved to fur and whiskers. Because cats themselves were once blamed for stealing breath straight from a sleeper's mouth. 21. Cats could steal your breath while you slept. For centuries, cats carried a reputation both mystical and sinister. One of the strangest beliefs was that they could steal your breath. People claimed that while you slept, a cat might climb onto your chest, not for cuddles, but to draw the very air from your lungs. Stories spread of infants found still in their cradles, with the family cat accused as the culprit. A tragic death needed an explanation, and the cat, sitting nearby, became the easy suspect. The superstition grew so strong that some households banned cats from bedrooms entirely, not because of allergies, but because the cat might eat your breath. In truth, cats probably just liked warm spots. Curling up near the face or chest of the sleeper made sense, but in the flicker of candlelight, it looked far more sinister. Imagine waking to find two glowing eyes staring down at you, purring, breathing in sync with your own. No wonder people jumped to supernatural conclusions. Science eventually cleared the cats. They weren't stealing breath, they were stealing heat and possibly plotting breakfast. From cats accused of suffocation, we moved to another outdoor danger, because sleeping under the stars was once thought to leave your soul dangerously exposed. 22. Sleeping under the stars exposed your soul. Today, camping under a starry sky feels romantic, but in older times it was seen as reckless. The belief was that sleeping beneath the open heavens left the soul unprotected. Wandering spirits could drift down, slip into your dreams, or even carry your essence away. Farmers warned their children against napping in fields. Travelers avoided resting under trees without some charm nearby. A roof, no matter how flimsy, was considered safer than open air. Some cultures tied this fear to the moon. They believed its light could confuse or weaken the soul, making you vulnerable to illness or madness. Imagine lying in a meadow, staring at the stars, only to hear your grandmother whisper, "Don't. The sky will swallow you." Of course, not everyone avoided it. Soldiers, shepherds, and wanderers had little choice, but many carried talismans, hoping to ward off whatever prowled above. Modern explanations suggest real risks, exposure to cold, insects, or predators. Wrapped in folklore, those dangers became ghostly thefts of the soul. From open skies, we move back indoors, to a belief that witches themselves drained energy straight from your sleeping body. 23. Witches drained energy from sleepers. Not all threats were distant. Some were believed to sit right at the edge of the bed. The superstition claimed that witches crept into homes at night to drain energy from sleepers. They didn't steal possessions. They stole vitality. Victims awoke exhausted, drained, sometimes with odd marks on the skin. Proof, they said, of a witch's midnight visit. Folklore described witches riding on the chests of their targets. Others said they sipped life through whispered spells. The effect was the same. Mornings felt heavier, weaker, haunted. Communities often blamed suspicious neighbors. A woman living alone, an outsider, or simply someone disliked could be accused of stealing energy at night. Imagine trying to explain your fatigue after a long week. "I'm just tired." "Ah, no," your neighbor says. "Clearly a witch drained you." Of course, these fears explained real problems: illness, insomnia, even stress. But instead of medicine, the solution was accusation. Charms of iron, salt, and prayers were used as defense. Anything that promised to keep witches out of the bedroom. From witches at the bedside, we moved to how people lay in bed themselves, because even your sleeping position was thought to decide your fate. 24. Sleeping upright prevented danger. For some, the safest way to sleep was not lying down at all, it was upright. The belief was that reclining too flat invited choking, paralysis, or even death. But propped upright, the body stayed safe. Soldiers on campaign often slept sitting, weapons across their laps, not just for readiness, but because death came easier to those lying down. Some even designed chairs specifically for sleeping. High-backed seats with armrests to cradle the head, as though lying down was too risky. It probably made sense in sick rooms. Patients struggling to breathe found relief sitting upright. Over time, the medical habit turned into superstition for everyone. Imagine a family gathering at night, everyone dozing in chairs around the fire, stubbornly refusing the comfort of beds. Not out of preference, but out of fear. Of course, the downside was obvious. Stiff necks, sore backs, mornings that felt worse than any nightmare. Still, the idea held. Better a crooked spine than a stolen breath. From sitting straight, we moved to lying stiff, because crossing your arms in sleep carried an even more ominous meaning. 25. Crossing arms while sleeping invited death. Body language mattered, even in dreams, and no pose was feared more than crossing your arms over your chest. This position resembled the dead, laid in coffins, arms folded neatly, waiting for burial. So if you slept that way, people said you were inviting death closer. It was like sending the Grim Reaper an RSVP. I'm ready when you are. Parents scolded children if they caught them folded up like corpses. Uncross your arms, they'd hiss, or you'll never wake. The superstition was strong enough that some avoided the position entirely. Even when cold, they refused to hug themselves in fear of resembling a body at rest. Imagine a tired villager, arms drifting to the chest by instinct. His wife gently smacks them apart, whispering, "Not tonight, death. Try another bed." Of course, people still woke up fine, but any sudden death during sleep, that was proof the arms had been crossed. It became one of countless small rules at bedtime. Sleep was dangerous enough without accidentally posing like a corpse. From crossed arms, we drift to compass points again, because facing north or south while sleeping was said to tilt the balance of life and death. 26. Sleeping facing north shortened life. For many cultures, the compass mattered at bedtime, and pointing north was a fatal mistake. The superstition said that lying with your head to the north drained your energy. Each night you slept that way, you inched closer to the grave. In parts of Europe, it was linked to death rituals. Bodies were often laid out facing north, so to sleep in that position was to mimic the dead. Parents warned their children not to arrange beds in that direction. Architects, when possible, avoided it. Even travelers rolled out blankets carefully, checking the stars before lying down. Imagine a weary farmer collapsing onto his cot. Then his wife shakes him awake, scolding. Not like that. You're sleeping into the grave. There may have been practical reasons. Sleeping north could expose you to colder winds or align you awkwardly in drafty houses. But wrapped in superstition, it became a cosmic law. From north's shadow of death, we turn south, where the same rule flipped and promised long life instead. 27. Sleeping facing south, lengthened life. If north was bad, south was salvation. Sleeping with your head to the south was thought to add years to your life. In India, it was tied to cosmic balance. The human body, they said, should align with the Earth's magnetic pull. South meant harmony. North meant chaos. In Europe, it was less mystical and more practical. South-facing sleepers often caught morning sun, waking refreshed. A cheerful coincidence that grew into a superstition. Families sometimes rearranged entire rooms to make sure beds pointed south. Furniture placement became a matter of longevity, not style. Imagine a young couple arguing about where to put the bed. One says, "It looks best here." The other replies, "Yes, but I'd like to live past 50. These beliefs often overlapped with Feng Shui, where harmony of direction still carries weight. But in folklore, it was more blunt. South kept you safe. North sent you packing. From directions we moved to connections dash dash, because even something as simple as holding hands in sleep was once feared to drain your strength. 28. Couples holding hands in sleep drained energy. Romantic in theory, disastrous in superstition. Holding hands while sleeping was said to sap a couple's strength. The belief was that energy flowed out through touch, and if you spent the night clinging to each other, you woke up exhausted. Some tales claimed it even shortened lives. Two souls too closely bound would slowly drain each other dry. Parents warned newlyweds to sleep apart, or at least at a respectable distance, not for decency, but for survival. Imagine a husband reaching across the bed in the dark. His wife slaps his hand away, not out of annoyance, but out of fear. She'll lose 5 years off her life. Of course, this belief may have had practical roots. Clutching tightly all night is uncomfortable. Arms fall asleep. Circulation slows. And yes, you really do wake up cranky. But for centuries, people framed it in supernatural terms. Love was good. Contact was dangerous. From drained lovers, we moved to dangerous posture. because crossing your feet while sleeping was said to invite death itself. 29. Sleeping with feet crossed invited death. Like crossed arms, crossed feet carried grim symbolism. It was another echo of the grave. Bodies in coffins were often arranged neatly, feet folded or bound, so anyone seen dozing that way risked calling death closer. Parents scolded children who nodded off curled up, ankles crossed. "Don't tempt fate," they whispered. Some believed the soul slipped more easily from a body when the limbs were locked. Others claimed it created a pathway for spirits to take you. Imagine waking in the night and catching yourself with your feet crossed. Do you uncross them quickly or lie very still, hoping death didn't notice? Like many sleep rules, this one probably came from symbolism. People associated certain poses with the dead, and the living wanted to avoid imitating them. From feet too close together, we moved to heads too close to doors, because sleeping with your head toward the exit was said to invite misfortune. 30. Sleeping with head toward the door brought bad luck. In old traditions, bed placement mattered, and the worst position of all was with your head toward the door. This was sometimes called the coffin position, because when bodies were carried out of homes, they went headfirst through the doorway. So sleeping that way was like practicing for your own funeral, and superstition said it hastened death. Even in cultures where the symbolism differed, it was still avoided. The door was seen as an entryway for spirits. Your head, resting so close, was their first target. Parents and builders alike arranged rooms around this rule. Beds were placed sideways or against walls, never pointing at the exit. Imagine staying at an inn only to realize the bed faced the door directly. Would you sleep soundly or spend the night nervously flipping the pillow around? Of course, practical reasons supported the fear. Doors let in drafts, noise, and unwanted visitors. No one sleeps well with their head in a traffic zone. From heads by doors, we move to what filled those dreams themselves, because entire books once promised to decode the hidden messages inside every strange vision. 31. Dreams as messages from the gods. For much of history, dreams weren't private nonsense. They were divine telegrams. Kings, priests, and everyday people all believed that what you saw at night came directly from the gods. A dream was an audience with heaven. In Mesopotamia, priests trained to interpret dreams stood alongside those who read stars. Both were considered sacred sciences. If a general dreamed of victory, armies marched. If he dreamed of defeat, sometimes wars were avoided entirely. Imagine the pressure of waking up and realizing your nap just changed the fate of thousands. Of course, not every dream was flattering. A bad dream might mean you'd angered the gods. Sacrifices and rituals quickly followed. Today, we call dreams brain activity. Back then, they were holy conversations with very high stakes. From divine whispers we moved to manuals of meaning, dream dictionaries that claimed to decode every symbol of the night. 32. Dream dictionaries explained everything. If you had a dream in the ancient world, you didn't shrug it off. You consulted a book. Dream dictionaries were popular in Egypt, Greece, Rome, and beyond. Thick manuals promised to decode every symbol. Dream of a cow, good harvest ahead. Dream of fish, expect a visitor. Dream of losing your teeth, prepare for death in the family. These guides became prized possessions. Merchants carried them. Soldiers consulted them before campaigns. Even lovers asked them if their nighttime visions meant marriage or heartbreak. Of course, the entries often contradicted each other. One book might say a cat meant fortune, another said it meant betrayal. So dreamers usually picked the version they liked best. It was fortune-telling by way of bedtime reading, and for many, it felt as essential as the Bible or the stars. From books of meaning, we moved to men of power, dream interpreters who made careers out of reading the minds of kings. 33. Prophets and dream interpreters guided rulers. In the courts of pharaohs and emperors, dreams carried political weight, which meant interpreters carried power. These specialists claimed to unlock divine secrets. One word from them could launch wars, crown heirs, or topple rivals. In the Bible, Joseph famously rose to prominence by interpreting Pharaoh's dreams. Grain stalks and cows weren't just symbols, they became state policy. Other cultures had their own Josephs, Greek oracles, Roman augurs, Babylonian priests, all ready to turn a ruler's nap into national destiny. Imagine the scene. A king wakes shaken. He summons his advisors. They lean in, nod gravely, and then one clears his throat. Your Majesty, that dream of geese? Clearly a sign you should raise taxes. Skeptics surely existed, but in a world without science, who dared argue when crops or armies were at stake? From interpreters of symbols, we move to one of the most common and terrifying dream signs of all, teeth falling out. 34. Dreams of teeth falling out meant death. Dreams of losing teeth are common even today, but in the past, they carried deadly weight. The superstition was clear. If you dreamed of your teeth falling out, someone close to you would die. It wasn't just folklore. It was written in dream dictionaries across cultures. From Babylon to medieval Europe, teeth meant life. So their loss in dreams meant life lost in reality. Families dreaded the vision. If someone confessed to it, relatives suddenly grew nervous. Every cough or stumble in the household became suspicious. Some softened the meaning. Instead of death, they said it meant betrayal or poverty. But the darker version always lingered louder. Imagine telling your spouse, "I dreamed all my teeth crumbled." Then, watching them eye you warily over breakfast, silently making their will. Modern psychology says it reflects anxiety, vanity, or insecurity. But back then, no such nuance existed. Teeth gone meant trouble coming. From teeth lost in dreams, we rise into the skies, because visions of flying were once blamed not on hope, but on witchcraft. 35 dreams of flying proved witchcraft. Flying dreams can feel exhilarating today, but in older times, they were treated as evidence of witchcraft. The idea was that witches traveled at night. They left their bodies, soaring through the air to attend secret gatherings. So if you dreamed of flight, it wasn't imagination, it was testimony. Proof you had joined them. People confessed under interrogation, describing dreams of soaring across rooftops. Authorities didn't see metaphors, they saw literal crimes. In some regions, even children were questioned. A boy who dreamed of floating was said to be tested by witches. A girl who dreamed of broomsticks was branded suspect. Imagine the fear of admitting such a dream to the wrong person. One moment you're telling a funny story, the next you're standing trial. Of course, the belief explained away natural experiences. Flying dreams happen often, especially in childhood, but superstition turned them from joy into danger. From flight in dreams, we drift into symbols of water and waves, because dreaming of rivers, oceans, or rain once meant a journey was on the horizon. 36 dreams of water meant travel was coming. Water in dreams was never just water, it was a ticket to somewhere new. People believed that rivers, oceans, or even a trickling stream in a dream foretold a journey. If the water was calm, the trip would be safe. If stormy, trouble awaited. Merchants in port cities took this seriously. A dream of clear waves might inspire them to set sail. A dream of floods could delay a voyage for weeks. Even landlocked farmers interpreted water dreams as signs of movement, perhaps to new fields or to visit distant relatives. Imagine dreaming of a puddle and your neighbor insisting you were destined to walk across half the kingdom. Dream manuals tied specific bodies of water to different outcomes. A lake meant slow journeys. A river meant quick ones. An ocean meant bold ventures and the risk of never coming back. Of course, sometimes people just dreamed of water because they were thirsty, but superstition gave every ripple meaning. From watery roads, we turned to four-legged guides, because the animals appearing in dreams were once seen as omens of fate. 37 animals in dreams were omens. Today, dreaming of animals might mean you watch too much Discovery Channel, but in the past, it meant destiny was speaking. A snake meant betrayal, a dog meant loyalty. A bird could mean freedom, or depending on the species, death. Every creature carried a coded message. Dream manuals filled with these lists circulated widely, Farmers, sailors, and even kings flipped through them, searching for meaning. Imagine a soldier telling his commander, "I dreamed of a horse." The commander doesn't ask about tactics. He asks, was it galloping or standing still? Because the difference might decide whether they march at dawn. Cats in dreams were especially tricky. Some said they meant wealth. Others swore they meant thieves. No wonder the poor animals got such a bad reputation. Of course, sometimes people just dreamed of animals they'd seen that day, but superstition gave every whisk away. From animals, we moved to unborn children, because pregnancy dreams were once thought to predict a baby's gender. 38. Pregnancy dreams predicted gender. In many cultures, expectant mothers watched their dreams like calendars. What they saw at night was believed to reveal the baby's sex. Dream of flowers or jewelry? A girl. Dream of weapons or animals? A boy. Some traditions were more specific. Dream of apples? Girl. Dream of bananas? Boy. A system not exactly rooted in science. Family members listened eagerly. Grandmothers leaned in at breakfast, demanding to know what images had appeared, and wagers were made on the outcome. Imagine the pressure on an exhausted mother, forced to remember whether she'd seen a rose or a rooster in her sleep. Dream interpreters even built reputations on pregnancy predictions. Get it right, and you were wise. Get it wrong, and you quietly avoided that family for a while. Though inaccurate, the superstition gave families comfort. They felt the mystery of birth was a little less uncertain. From predicting babies, we moved to predicting marriages. Because dreams were also said to reveal your future spouse. 39. Dreams revealed your future spouse. Before dating apps, there were dream omens. Young men and women were told their future partner's face would appear in their dreams. Sleeping on special charms, like herbs under the pillow, was said to improve the chances. A sprig of rosemary, a leaf of laurel, or even a slice of wedding cake placed beneath the head. Girls at village fairs swapped recipes for marriage dreams. Some rituals involved fasting, others chanting verses before bed, all in the hope of glimpsing a future groom. Imagine a girl dreaming of a random farmer's son, and then awkwardly avoiding him for months because everyone insisted it was fate. Sometimes, the dreams were disappointingly vague, a figure in shadow, a hand without a face. Still, the dreamer woke, convinced destiny had spoken. Men, too, sought these visions. Though less likely to admit it, they followed the same charms, because no one wanted to miss their match. From lovers foretold, we moved to sand and sleep, because one of the most enduring bedtime figures was the Sandman, a spirit who sprinkled rest itself into the eyes of the weary. 40. The Sandman sprinkled sleep into eyes. In European folklore, sleep had a helper, a small figure known as the Sandman. He was said to visit at night, carrying a pouch of magical sand. A sprinkle into the eyes made children drowsy, slipping gently into dreams. Parents told the story to explain the sleep dust that gathered in the corners of eyes. Proof, they said, of the Sandman's visit. But the Sandman wasn't always gentle. Some tales painted him as sinister, putting people to sleep forever, or blinding those who resisted his dust. Still, in most versions, he was comforting, a friend of the tired, bringing rest to restless children. Imagine a mother tucking her child in. "Don't fight sleep," she whispers, "or the Sandman might toss too much dust." The legend spread across Europe, eventually softening into lullabies and nursery rhymes. By the 19th century, he was almost always friendly. From magical sand, we moved to holy smoke, because incense at bedtime was once thought to chase away nightmares before they could take hold. 41. Burning incense at bedtime banished nightmares. Before scented candles, there was incense, and for centuries, it wasn't just about smell, it was about survival. People believed burning incense at night purified the air. It drove away demons, chased nightmares, and calmed restless spirits hovering near the bed. Certain herbs were prized: frankincense for holiness, myrrh for protection, lavender for peace. Though to some, anything smoky was better than nothing. Imagine drifting off while your room filled with fragrant haze. You weren't just dozing, you were fortifying your soul like a fortress. The wealthy burned elaborate blends, sometimes mixing resins with rare spices. Poorer families relied on whatever herbs they could gather: a handful of sage, a sprig of rosemary, a pinch of thyme tossed onto coals. Of course, not every sleeper appreciated it. Some woke coughing, eyes watering, muttering, "If the nightmares don't get me, the smoke will." Still, the belief endured. Smoke wasn't just fragrance, it was invisible armor. From smoky air, we moved to holy beads, rosaries tucked beneath pillows as shields against midnight terrors. 42. Rosaries under pillows protected sleepers. In Catholic households, sleep came with prayer and with protection. Rosaries weren't only for hands, they were tucked beneath pillows. The idea was simple. Evil could not reach a head resting on holy beads. Demons recoiled, nightmares dissolved, and angels, some believed, lingered closer. Parents placed them under children's pillows. Widows kept them near for comfort. Even travelers carried them into inns, slipping them beneath strange bedding. Imagine rolling over in the night and feeling the uncomfortable jab of wooden beads. But instead of annoyance, you think, "Good, means the devil can't get me." The practice blurred the line between ritual and superstition. Some priests encouraged it, others warned against turning faith into magic. But the people believed strongly enough to ignore debate. And in a world where sleep was seen as vulnerable, a rosary was as important as a locked door. From beads on pillows, we moved to bodies in motion, because sleepwalking was once thought to be something far scarier than harmless wandering. 43. Sleepwalking meant possession. Today, sleepwalking is chalked up to odd brain activity, but centuries ago, it was treated like a midnight haunting. A person wandering in their sleep was said to be possessed, their body controlled by spirits, their soul out wandering elsewhere. Villagers whispered that witches used sleepwalkers like puppets, guiding them to rooftops, rivers, or even crime scenes. Imagine finding your neighbor strolling across the village square, barefoot at 2 a.m. Instead of helping, you cross yourself and mutter, "The spirits have him." Some feared waking a sleepwalker would kill them. Others believed leaving them alone risked letting the possession deepen. Either way, everyone was nervous. Exorcisms were sometimes attempted. Priests stood over beds, chanting prayers, sprinkling holy water, hoping to anchor the soul back inside. Of course, many sleepwalkers survived just fine, but their reputation stuck. Harmless wanderers one moment, cursed vessels the next. From wandering bodies, we move to wandering tongues, because talking in your sleep wasn't just embarrassing, it was believed to reveal dangerous secrets. 44. Talking in sleep revealed secrets. Sleep talking today might get you teased, but in the past, it could get you accused. The belief was that words spoken in sleep were confessions. The soul, loosened from the body, spilled its secrets. Spouses and parents leaned in close, listening for muttered names or guilty phrases. A thief might be revealed by his own unconscious tongue. Imagine the terror of waking to find your family staring at you, claiming you just confessed to stealing the neighbor's chicken. In some trials, sleep talk was even used as evidence. Courts debated whether dream words carried truth. Skeptics rolled their eyes. Believers nodded gravely. To protect against accidental betrayal, some people stuffed herbs in pillows. The plants were supposed to silence the tongue while the soul roamed. Of course, sleep talking is usually just gibberish, but for centuries, it was treated as a window into hidden sins. From loose tongues, we turn to restless dreams, because nightmares themselves were once thought to be devil's tricks. 45. Nightmares were devil's tricks. Bad dreams weren't shrugged off as random. They were blamed on the devil. The belief was that nightmares weren't just frightening, they were planted. The devil sent them to torment souls, weaken faith, or tempt sleepers into sin. A dream of falling wasn't about the brain misfiring. It was Satan's way of reminding you where you might land. Clergy warned parishioners that repeated nightmares were a sign of spiritual vulnerability, and prayers before bed became as important as blankets. Imagine waking from a nightmare of fire and hearing your grandmother sigh. The devil's been whispering again. Charms, crosses, and blessed water were all employed to guard against him. Some even avoided certain foods, fearing they fed the devil's illusions. Of course, nightmares are part of being human, but for centuries, they were treated not as biology, but as battlefields. From devilish dreams, we moved to ghostly beds, because the next superstition claimed an empty bed in a house could summon spirits to fill it. 46. Empty beds invited spirits. In many households, leaving a bed unoccupied was a bad idea. It wasn't just wasted space, it was an invitation. People believed empty beds attracted spirits. Ghosts, demons, or wandering souls might see it as a cozy resting place. So families often piled blankets, clothes, or even firewood onto unused beds. Better a messy room than a spectral roommate. Travelers in inns worried about half-filled rooms. One bed for them, one bed for whoever else might show up. Imagine checking into a medieval hostel and the innkeeper saying cheerfully, "Don't worry, if another guest arrives, you probably won't see them." The superstition was strong enough that in some places, spare beds were deliberately dismantled. Better no bed than a haunted one. From empty beds, we moved to restless sleepers, because even something as small as flipping a pillow was said to change your luck. 47. Turning pillows changed luck. If sleep wasn't going well, people turned to, well, turning. The belief was that flipping a pillow mid-sleep shifted fortune. Some said it banished nightmares. Others claimed it summoned better dreams. A few insisted it simply reset the soul's path. Parents taught children the trick. Scared of your dream? Flip the pillow and start fresh. Of course, there might have been a practical angle. Cooler fabric on the underside feels nice, but superstition added drama. Imagine a farmer waking in the dark, muttering, "Bad dream, bad omen. Quick, flip the pillow before fate notices." In some cultures, people whispered prayers while turning it. The movement became a ritual, part physical, part spiritual. From soft pillows, we moved to shaking beds, because nothing unsettled sleepers more than waking to find the whole frame trembling with unseen hands. 48. Shaking beds meant ghostly visitors. Today, we blame earthquakes, drafty windows, or loose floorboards, but in the past, a shaking bed was ghostly proof. People swore they felt invisible hands rocking their frames at night. Not playful, but menacing. Spirits demanding attention. Haunted house tales often began with restless beds. A new tenant lying awake, feeling the mattress tremble as if someone else had just sat down. Priests and wise women were called in. Blessings, smoke, salt, all soul in an attempt to anchor the bed to peace again. Imagine being jolted awake at midnight, bed legs rattling, and your spouse calmly whispering, "Oh, don't worry, it's just the dead passing through." For centuries, shaking furniture ranked high among proofs of haunting. A restless bed was more than creaky wood. It was a ghost demanding rent. From rattling frames, we moved to restless bodies, because even a sneeze while sleeping was once read as a very bad sign. 49. Sneezing in sleep was a bad omen. Sneezing is usually harmless, but if it happened while you slept, people once panicked. The belief was that sneezing during slumber opened the body to spirits. A soul shaken loose might not return properly. Some claimed it foretold illness. Others swore it meant someone in the household would soon die. Parents leaned over cradles nervously if a baby sneezed in its sleep. Healthy or not, the sound was enough to start whispering prayers. Imagine waking with a stuffy nose, only to find your entire family convinced your sneeze had signed their death warrants. To counter it, people muttered protective phrases. "God bless you" wasn't just politeness, it was armor against the invisible. From sneezes, we end with roosters, because dawn's crow was said to chase away every danger of the night. 50. A rooster's crow ended all nighttime danger. Of all bedtime superstitions, few were as comforting as this. The rooster was a natural guardian. It was believed that spirits, witches, and demons ruled the night, but at the first crow of a rooster, their power broke. The sound of dawn was like a trumpet blast of safety. Evil fled, dreams dissolved, the living world reclaimed its hold. Villages treasured their roosters, not just for eggs and meat, but as feathered protectors against what stalked in darkness. Imagine lying awake, terrified of shadows, until that sharp crow split the silence. Relief swept over the house. The night was defeated once again. The symbolism spread into Christianity. The rooster became a herald of light, a reminder that no darkness lasted forever. And so, sleep carried a rhythm. Fear ruled from dusk until dawn, but the rooster's voice marked the boundary where evil could no longer follow. 51. Sleeping during an eclipse invited illness. Eclipses terrified ancient people. Day turned into night, and the natural order seemed broken. Many cultures warned against sleeping during an eclipse. To do so left you exposed to sickness, curses, or madness. The reasoning was cosmic. If the sun and moon were in conflict, your body was caught in the crossfire. Closing your eyes in such a moment was like surrendering to chaos. Parents shook children awake when the sky darkened. Better cranky kids than cursed ones. Imagine napping through an eclipse, only to wake up to neighbors pointing and whispering, "There goes the doomed one." Some believed Sleeping then allowed evil spirits to enter through the shadow. Others thought the eclipse itself stole energy, leaving sleepers pale and weak. Today, eclipses are exciting astronomical events. Back then, they were dangerous gaps in reality where sleep meant risk. From celestial shadows, we move to earthbound fears, because even where you placed your shoes at night could shape your fate. 52. Shoes left upside down. Invited nightmares. In many cultures, shoes weren't just footwear, they were powerful symbols. The superstition warned against leaving them upside down at night. Do so, and nightmares would find you. Some said the inverted shoes confused the soul, making it stumble back into the body with bad dreams attached. Others claimed the position invited wandering spirits who mistook them for empty bodies. Parents scolded messy children. "Put your shoes right," they insisted, "or you'll wake screaming." Imagine a weary farmer tossing boots by the door, then jolting awake hours later, convinced goblins had stomped across his dreams. This belief also tied into respect. Shoes upside down were seen as insulting to household spirits. Disrespect them, and they return the favor with a night of terror. Today, an untidy shoe rack just looks sloppy, but for centuries, it looked like a recipe for nightmares. From footwear to furniture, we move to another warning. Never put your hat on the bed, or your sleep might turn deadly. 53. Hats on beds invited death in dreams. The rule was clear: never place a hat on a bed, especially before sleep. People believed it invited death to hover over the sleeper. The hat, symbol of the head, resting on the bed, symbol of the body, created a grim rehearsal. This superstition was common across Europe. Cowboys in America later carried it on, refusing to toss hats onto bed frames. Imagine a guest casually setting his cap on your mattress. You don't thank him. You shriek and toss it to the floor, muttering prayers. Some believed it also stirred up bad dreams, that spirits saw the hat as a beacon, guiding them straight to your pillow. The practice likely had practical roots. Hats carried dust, lice, and sweat. No one wanted that on their bedding. But superstition turned hygiene into a matter of mortality. From cursed hats, we moved to glowing fires, because leaving flames burning while you slept was thought to summon wandering souls. 54. Sleeping beside a fire attracted spirits. For people in cold climates, hearth fires were lifesavers, but letting them burn overnight carried a spooky warning. The superstition said that open flames while you slept called spirits. The glow acted as a beacon, drawing wandering souls into the home. Some claimed ancestors arrived, demanding offerings. Others feared less friendly visitors, ghosts, demons, or witches looking for warmth. Imagine trying to doze by the fire only to hear your grandmother whisper, "Careful, the dead are staring through the flames." Families developed rituals to bank fires. They dimmed the glow, covering embers with ash to keep warmth, but hide the light. Practical and supernatural at once. Leaving fire unattended was also risky for obvious reasons. Houses burned. So superstition and safety overlapped neatly. From restless flames, we moved to restless shadows, because mirrors near the bed were thought to trap the soul while you slept. 55. Mirrors near beds trap the soul. Mirrors have long been eerie objects, and at bedtime they were feared most of all. The superstition warned against placing a bed where you could see your reflection at night. Your soul, wandering in dream, might become confused and get stuck in the glass. People claimed that sleeping opposite a mirror caused exhaustion. You woke feeling split, as though part of you was left behind. Others said spirits used mirrors as doorways, so at night, the glass wasn't reflecting, it was waiting. Imagine rolling over and catching your own reflection, blinking back just a fraction too late. No wonder mirrors were covered with cloth after dark. Victorians especially obsessed over this. They draped mirrors in mourning houses so souls of the dead wouldn't get trapped. The bedroom became a minefield of fabric and superstition. Today, some still avoid mirrors near beds, not for fear of demons, but for fear of scaring themselves at 3 a.m. From trapped reflections, we move to hungry dead, because food left unfinished before sleep was believed to lure spirits to the table. 56. Leaving food before bed attracted hungry spirits. In many cultures, supper wasn't just for the living. If you left food unfinished at night, spirits might come to claim it. The superstition said, hungry ghosts roamed after dark. Any scraps left on the table or stove became offerings, whether you intended them or not. Families were warned never to go to bed with dishes unwashed, not for cleanliness, but because spirits will smell it and follow. Imagine waking up to a missing loaf of bread and hearing your grandmother whisper, "It wasn't rats, it was the dead." In some places, families deliberately left food out as offerings to keep spirits calm. In others, they cleared everything away to keep spirits out entirely. Either way, the kitchen became a spiritual battlefield between appetite and afterlife. From leftovers luring ghosts, we moved to stars luring fate. Because even counting constellations before bed was thought to shape your dreams. 57. Counting stars before sleep invited bad luck. Stargazing is romantic today, but once upon a time, it carried risk. The superstition warned against counting stars before falling asleep. Do so, and you invited misfortune, bad dreams, illness, or even blindness. The reasoning varied. Some believed each star you counted was a year stolen from your life. Others said it angered celestial spirits who didn't like being tallied like sheep. Parents warned children not to lie on their backs, pointing and counting. Better to admire the sky without numbers. Imagine a child proudly announcing, "I saw 200 stars," only to have the whole village groan in horror. Practical roots might lie in eye strain. Counting faint stars could leave eyes aching by firelight, making morning headaches feel like curses. From stars above, we move to nails below, because trimming them after sunset was said to invite disaster. 58. Cutting nails after sunset invited misfortune. Personal grooming had curfews, and the strictest rule was never to cut your nails after dark. The superstition claimed it shortened life, invited spirits, or brought financial ruin. Depending on where you lived, you risked death, ghosts, or poverty, all from a bit of late-night clipping. Some said nails carried part of the soul. Throwing them away in darkness meant losing pieces of yourself. Others believed witches collected discarded nails for spells. Nighttime nail clippings were like leaving your business card at the devil's door. Parents repeated the rule so often it became second nature. Daytime trimming was fine. Nighttime trimming was reckless. Imagine the frustration of breaking a nail at dusk and having to wait until morning to fix it, muttering, "Guess I'll just live with bad luck hanging off my finger." From nails, we moved to pillows, because even borrowing someone else's cushion for the night was thought to share more than comfort. 59. Sleeping on borrowed pillows, shared nightmares. Beds were personal, but pillows were practically sacred. The superstition warned against borrowing another person's pillow. Sleep on it, and you risked inheriting their dreams or their nightmares. Some believed pillows held traces of the soul. Others said they absorbed worries, fears, and memories. Rest your head there, and you'd soak them up like a sponge. Guests were often given fresh straw or hastily stuffed sacks, not out of hospitality, but out of superstition. Imagine waking from a nightmare about someone else's dead uncle, only to be told, "Oh yes, that was Harold's pillow. Sorry." The belief carried into medicine. Doctors sometimes advise the sick to burn old pillows lest their illnesses spread through dreams. From shared pillows, we move to whispered names, because even hearing your own called at night was seen as an omen of death. 60. Hearing your name called in sleep meant death was near. Few things chilled the heart like this superstition. If you heard your name called while drifting in sleep, it wasn't a dream, it was death. The belief said spirits, or death itself, whispered names at night. Answer, and your soul left the body. Stay silent, and you lived. Parents warned children, if you hear your name, don't answer. A simple survival tip delivered in the most unsettling way possible. Imagine lying in bed, half asleep, hearing your name float through the dark. You freeze, lips clamped shut, terrified that one word could end everything. The superstition appears worldwide. African, European, Asian, and native traditions all carried versions of it. The details differed, but the fear was universal. Some softened it, claiming it meant only illness or bad luck, but the darker version always stuck louder. Even today, people report hearing phantom voices at night. Science calls it hypnagogic hallucination. Folklore calls it the grim roll call of the dead. And so, the night once again turned into a test, not only of dreams, but of silence, because answering the wrong whisper could mean you'd never wake again. Tonight, we've wandered through 50 strange beliefs, rituals of salt and incense, warnings about cats and witches, prophecies spun from dreams. Each one shows how fragile and mysterious sleep once seemed. And maybe even now, some small part of us still feels safer when the morning breaks and the world stirs awake. Because whether you believe in demons or just in restless dreams, there's comfort in knowing that every night eventually gives way to dawn.